You are listening to Protocol News. I'm Ryan Moon. Today, ZEC dropped 50% after a bug disclosure, and proving no one exploited it is impossible. There was a bug in Zcash's Orchard shielded pool that could have let someone print free money and nobody would have been able to tell. The pool was live for approximately 4 years. The question the market is still trying to answer is not whether the bug existed, it's whether anyone used it. Let's talk about how that question gets answered, because the answer is not what you'd expect. The Orchard pool is Zcash's third and most technically advanced shielded pool. It launched in May of 2022 with a proving system called Halo 2, which was notable specifically because it required no trusted setup. That was a big deal. Earlier Zcash constructions had a trusted setup ceremony that critics never fully trusted, and Halo 2 was supposed to close that chapter. No ceremony, no trust assumption, just math. The pool went live. Zcash moved on. What nobody caught for approximately 4 years was a flaw in the elliptic curve arithmetic chip inside the Halo 2 gadget's Rust crate. The specific function is called ECC chip mul. The incomplete double and add loop it runs kept the per iteration base point constant across loop rows, but never actually tied that constant to the real base. So a prover could run the loop against a different constant entirely, and the gadget would output the wrong result while producing a proof that verified as valid. In plain terms, you could construct a proof that said you owned coins you didn't own, and the network would accept it. This is what cryptographers call a soundness bug. The proof system is supposed to guarantee that a valid proof can only be produced by someone with a valid witness. Soundness is the property that makes the whole thing work. When soundness breaks, the privacy layer that was supposed to hide your balance is still hiding balances, just not necessarily real ones. Taylor Hornby found it. Hornby is an independent security researcher and former electric coin company engineer, which means he had deep institutional knowledge of exactly where to look. He gained access to Anthropic's Opus 4.8 model for permitted security research on a Thursday. He found the bug on Friday, one day. The bug had survived 4 years of expert human review. It did not survive 1 day of AI-assisted analysis. Zodl's own post-incident statement says it directly. AI-assisted coding and analysis tools are, quote, dramatically reducing the cost of vulnerability discovery. That's not a color detail. That's a regime change for every cryptographic protocol in production right now. Hornby disclosed privately on Friday night, May 29th at 11:53 p.m. By Saturday morning, Zodl engineers Dara Emma Hopwood, Chris Nuttycombe, and Jack Grigg had confirmed the issue. By Sunday evening, they were privately coordinating with miners and exchanges. By Monday, they had a patch. The first soft fork activation attempt Monday night failed. Official communications describe coordination challenges during patch deployment. Neither Zodl nor the Zcash Foundation has explained what specifically went wrong, which is a conspicuous gap in the incident report of an organization that otherwise documented this response in granular detail. The second attempt succeeded at block height 3,363,426 at approximately 2 in the morning, UTC on June 2nd. The hard fork, NU 6.2, activated June 3rd. Here is why it had to be a two-step process. A direct patch to the circuit would have told anyone reading the updated code exactly what the vulnerability was and how to exploit it. So they disabled Orchard transactions first via soft fork, bought themselves time to finalize the fix, then re-enabled via hard fork with the corrected circuit and an updated verifying key. The verifying key is the part that makes this a hard fork rather than a software update. You cannot fix a zero-knowledge proof circuit bug with a patch. The pinned verifying key is what the network uses to check proofs. Change the circuit, you change the key, and that requires network consensus. There is no shortcut. Public disclosure came on June 4th. ZEC was trading somewhere between $536 and $630 depending on which source you read. By the following morning it had hit a low between $261 and $263. Call it 50 to 58% down depending on your reference price. Zcash fell from 12th to 18th in market cap rankings. Arthur Hayes publicly disclosed he liquidated his entire ZC position. Trading volume hit approximately $1.15 billion over 24 hours. And here is the thing, that the 50% crash was actually pricing, not the bug, and not even the patch. The patch worked. The network upgraded. no turnstile violation was detected, meaning no cross-pool supply inflation occurred. What the market was pricing was the answer to a question that the patch cannot answer. Did anyone use this in the 4 years it was open? This is the structural problem with shielded pools. The same cryptographic properties that make your transaction private, that hide your balance from chain observers, also make it impossible to verify the internal state of the pool from the outside. Zcash's turnstile mechanism tracks net flows between pools publicly. You can see how much ZEC moved from the transparent pool into Orchard and how much moved back out. What you cannot see is what happened inside. Zodl says there is no evidence of exploitation. Shielded Labs says outside observers cannot prove whether counterfeit coins were created. Both statements are true simultaneously. No detected evidence is not the same as proof of non-existence. And in a shielded pool, those two things are structurally different. This is where Ironwood comes in, and this is the mechanism worth understanding. The proposed NU7 upgrade, codenamed Ironwood, does not try to audit the old Orchard pool directly. It cannot. Instead, it deprecates the old pool as a payment destination and routes all future transactions to a fresh Ironwood pool. Any hypothetical counterfeit coins still sitting in old Orchard must pass through the turnstile to be spent. The turnstile is public. It tallies cross-pool flows. If counterfeit coins try to move, the public ledger records an anomalous inflow into the new pool that doesn't correspond to legitimate ZEC supply. Coins that never move stay trapped in a pool that accepts no new payments and processes no new transactions. Their continued inactivity over time becomes probabilistic evidence they don't exist or were never moved, which amounts to the same thing economically. The Sprout pool is the template here. Zcash patched a similar construction years ago, deprecated that pool, and today it holds approximately 25,000 ZC in stagnant balances. The turnstile was never violated. The community treats this as near-conclusive evidence no counterfeiting occurred, on the logic that any rational counterfeiter would have cashed out before detection, and the stagnant balance makes that implausible. Ironwood flips that lesson from passive to active. Rather than waiting years for a stagnant balance to become evidence, the upgrade sets an explicit deadline. Unredeemed old Orchard funds become economically worthless after the migration window closes, which sharply compresses the timeline for supply assurance. Sean Bao and Dev Ojha describe it this way. By restricting payments in the old pool, they force any hypothetical counterfeit coins to travel through the turnstile before wallets accept them as payment. It is not a new cryptographic proof. It is an economic choke point enforced by wallet-level upgrade policy. The elegance is that it exploits the same compartmentalization architecture that made the fraud possible in the first place, and runs it in reverse. There are open questions this story hasn't answered. Nobody has published what the Orchard pool balance was at its historical peak, which would bound the maximum counterfeit then liquidate opportunity during the 4-year window. The first soft fork failure remains technically unexplained. The Ironwood proposal doesn't address how exchange-custodied ZEC gets migrated if exchanges don't upgrade on time, and the 3-day gap between the private coordination with miners and exchanges and the public disclosure, during which sophisticated participants knew something the market didn't, is a question that nobody has asked out loud in any available coverage. The open loop from the top of this episode was, how do you prove a shielded pool was never exploited, and what does it mean that you can't? The answer Ironwood gives is that you don't prove it directly. You build an economic trap and wait to see what walks into it. Coins that are real get migrated. Coins that were fake either move through the turnstile and get caught or stay frozen in a deprecated pool that does nothing. The market's job now is to decide whether 6 weeks of migration window is enough time to trust that answer. That's Protocol News. I'm Ryan Moon. None of this is investment advice. Protocol is for information and entertainment. Don't trust, verify, and always do your own research.
Grab news. Thomas.